Hey, there it goes. It's at least coming up on YouTube, and that's not the end of the world.
There you go.
Hey, how's everybody doing?
Oh, there it is. I'm sorry. I forgot I needed to go to the new.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Can you hear me all right and whatnot?
Oh, yeah. All righty.
Right. I've got a little echo for some reason, and I don't know if that's
I think I had the YouTube channel up, the volume up, and that was echoing.
Oh, yeah. I think I do too, actually. There we go. All right. Hey, well, thanks everybody for hanging out. And Gonzalo, thank you.
No problem, man.
You're actually Gonzalo.
Gonzalo. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. Well, I'm Dom Words.
Wait a minute. I'm gonna there. Let's change it. Did it fix it?
Yes, sir.
All right, there you go. So many technical
How
issues.
about that?
The big problem was that I refused to go live without green M&Ms in the green room. That was the main problem there, and we came to an agreement.
That seems entirely reasonable. Yeah. I mean, I don't blame you because I wouldn't either.
I said Evian.
So how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I'm getting to talk about stuff, gaming, D&D, role-playing games. That's always a good time compared to shitty real-world work stuff. So this is great.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks for having me on.
Tell me about it. Oh, yeah, man. It's my pleasure. Now, the thing is that you thought that's what you were coming here for, but this is actually a celebrity roast.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, do I get what's his name? He was in Casino. What was the comedian's name? Don Rickles. Do I get roasted?
Oh, yeah, Don.
Yeah.
Classic.
Oh, we got Dave out there. I think DL is David, right?
DL that's a Michael Dale.
Michael Dale. Sorry, damn it.
Yeah. Yeah, how do I I can just show these guys. I use the other software, but I've still got an account to these guys. Yeah, so he wants Gonzalo.
Gonzalo. That is a cool. There's no going wrong with a funny and or evil sounding name starting with G. It just works no matter how you do it.
And as a matter of fact, that would have been a perfect man, it's kind of like Bargle or something like that. That would have been a perfect old school way to, create an anagram out of your name or something to make a wicked sounding wizard.
That definitely would work. Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. Gonzalo. That's pretty badass. So what you been up to lately?
Gaming a lot. I've been having fun on Tuesday night. Just sort of trying to mesh new people, and we have a new guy on Delver's thing, and I really have to say that Paul does not enjoy being the main person to charge in now. Now I see why your character was always charging in all the time. Now Paul has to do it, and I was like,
it's not fun.
I used to not have to do this. We had a guy for this, but no, it's cool. I mean, we're in A3 over there, and
right.
It's we have somebody playing Roy. I'm always glad to have someone actually controlling the spellcaster. It's always helpful.
Yeah, well, you basically have to have a magic user, right? If you don't have a magic user in AD&D, well,
at high levels for sure. At high levels,
stay home. Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
But mostly I've been thinking about you know trying to gaming and online gaming, and I have decided to um, create an account on I think it's called Start Playing. I think that's what it is. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Start Playing, and trying to just uh, you know see if I can get some interest in things that I like to do in the area of role playing games. I don't think who knows what interest there might be. It probably won't be popular. It's just going to be what I like to do, and if people like it, they will like it, and if they don't, then that's totally fine too. I don't know that it'll be the usual thing that not saying would be better in any way or anything, just a little more sort of um, kind of low system, a little more role play and culture stuff using the Moldvay basic and expert set.
Yeah, yeah, and that's never a bad choice to use that rule set. I mean, it's really interesting the way that ended up being the basis for the OSR, really, and everything that came after it. Even though the OSR had kind of launched on more of an AD&D kind of thing, and even an OD&D thing, but honestly, BX in terms of being a rule set is, in my opinion, far better than BECMI. And just I mean, it's a really special thing. As you know, I love AD&D, particularly 1E or only 1E, but BX is really, really special. And I think it's the same type of thing. It was a moment in time, and I don't know how much. I don't know exactly how much Mulvey contributed and how much Cook contributed, but being what Cook did in some things like what Zebulon's Guide in Star Frontiers, which was pretty poorly received and changed the game system entirely. And then what he did, being primarily responsible for 2E, I really feel like BX was more of a Moldvay thing. We call them Moldvay dice, the dice that came with that set. We don't call them, Zeb Cook dice or whatever. That's not to throw, what do the kids say? Throw any shade, or the
Right.
kids used to say, on the guy. But it's really a pretty excellent rule system. So, how long have you? Because I know I've seen you on Great Old Ones channel, which everybody should subscribe to, and that's all it is, at symbol Great Old Ones channel on YouTube. Everybody should subscribe to him. We've done some stuff with him. Gonzalo continues to do some stuff with them, and so do I. I know you talk Rollmaster on there a lot, but which of those did you? Two questions: which of those did you start with, and which of those is nearer and dearer to your heart?
Well, BX, clearly. I mean, this was well. That's actually not true. I didn't start with either one of them. If you want to know the first thing I actually played, I actually played first edition AD&D first. That was the very first
Right.
thing that I played. Would you like to hear the story of how I found out about Dungeons and Dragons and started playing?
Absolutely,
All right.
absolutely.
So I had been in Catholic school in part of seventh grade, and we, for whatever reason, financial fortunes, my family was not able to afford to pay for Catholic school any longer, so it was back to uh, public school for me, which I was pretty excited about, I have to admit. But so I it's the funny story is there was a guy in my math class, and I came middle semester, and the teacher did like a diagnostic math test, right? Where let's see where we are at the semester, everybody, even people that are new, what blah blah blah. So there was a guy in the class, and I hadn't been there very long, but I knew he was a very smart guy, and I tried to get him to let me cheat off him on the math test, and he would not do it. And I thought to myself, wow, I have got to get to know this guy because he would not let me.
Right.
I got to get to know this guy. Then later on, I don't know if it was the same day or shortly thereafter, they did announcements and they said, uh, meeting today in the library or every Wednesday or whatever it was at 3:45, the Dungeons and Dragons Club. And I was like, holy crap, that sounds cool as hell. I don't even know what that is, but I'm going to that. I got
Yeah.
there, and the guy and it was they were playing first edition AD&D, and the guy running it was the guy who would not let me cheat off him in math class.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Nice. My introduction, and I'll keep it as short as I can, but my introduction was I went to public school in a really rough part of town, right? But that's back when we had gifted classes, IEP, which they later called it, and stuff like that. And this school, which was predominantly of different ethnic culture than me, even though I lived in the same area and stuff. The curriculum was considered underneath what would supposedly an overachiever would do. So they would bus me off on Wednesdays to this other school. So I bus off to this other school, and there was one I was in first, but then I bus off to this other school. I think in third grade, and I go into this class, and it was really cool. And we did some stuff towards the end of the class because it just basically wasn't standard curricula, right? It wasn't arithmetic and stuff like that. It was more creative thinking type of things. But we go in there, and I'm new in the class and all that. Yeah, yeah. And we did some what do they call it? Some stop motion photography, and this was a really long time ago.
Nice.
Using a string and a pencil and all that. And then the teacher, who was a woman, the teacher is like, "Okay, guys, it's D&D time," and I knew nothing about this, right? And I'm like, what, 7 years old or 8 years old, and I play this, and I don't really know much about it at all. It was like a 45-minute affair, and then I came home and I told my mom about it. And this was satanic panic time. I told my mom about it. I'm like, "You won't believe what I learned, Mom. I learned all about evolution and Dungeons and Dragons." Next thing I know, I'm ripped from that school, never to go to it again after a parent teacher conference because my mom decides to go and tell this lady who was basically scientific in her approach about how wrong she was from a religious standpoint. So, but
I don't care what anyone says. Jack T. Chick has the most based DMs in Dungeons and Dragons, and I will die on that. I will die on that hill.
He's got the most based DMs, the most based books, right, the most based witches, the spellcasters.
Right.
The
Blackleaf, was that what her name was? Blackleaf, I want to say. I used to get those things in my neighborhood when I went to a similar.
So did I.
I went to a similar school situation. I think one year, like in roughly the same grade, third grade. Although this was the 70s, and I would get my ass kicked on a daily basis. And but that's not related to the story about the Jack T. Chick stuff. But there were people in the neighborhood who, I think I got them for Halloween or something. I think I went trick or treating that year, and they were like some people.
Oh, I got them.
And
and the little orange pumpkin. Right, I remember that now.
Yeah. And they were scary as fuck as a little kid. I mean, sorry, I'm using the F word.
Yeah. No, that's cool, man. We're here to say whatever you want. I don't give a damn.
That was scary as hell in third grade. So take it. What do you think my first character class in first edition AD&D was?
Well, I would assume that it was a magic user then.
Nope.
Fighter?
Nope.
Thief?
Assassin.
That's not, oh yeah.
My very first
Right, because
character.
you,
And I
yeah.
literally took, like, this is how dumb I was. Oh, my character's there to kill one of these guys in the party. So of course I killed the guy who was I just made this guy my target, and I killed him because I'm an assassin. This
Right.
is seventh grade. And then and this was, I think we did we were using the advanced books, but we did B1 search the unknown or whatever it is.
Yeah,
And
that's what it is.
basically what happened, I wound up killing the guy, but then they killed me, or they hurt me enough that I couldn't get away, but I was able to arrange it where I passed out and blocked the doorway with my bot, like jammed the doorway with my dying body, so they were trapped inside this room and they died too. That's some
Well,
real
you
role play.
assassinated them one way or another.
That's some real
Yeah,
role play right
and
there.
then yeah, and nowadays, that's basically considered based type of play, as if it's some sort of new thing.
Right.
But
That was the first thing I ever
a
did
bunch
in
of us were doing
yeah,
silly.
the first thing I ever did in
Yeah,
AD&D. I hate to disappoint Jack and all that, but so yeah, but so that was the first thing I actually played. Then I got into the BX stuff, and I'm going to be honest here. 50% of the reason why I like the mold based stuff is because of the Errol Otis covers. I'm not even going to lie. The Errol Otis covers
right.
make like that drew me into that, and I like it. I also, there's some people have done some like fan made extensions. I have a hard time relating to a man who didn't want to be an all powerful wizard for their first character. Uh, Duly noted, Michael. Next time I make up an assassin and we're in the same. I have my
You've got a
target.
good percentage chance, perhaps.
Yeah.
You know.
Um, but so there's been some fan made stuff that I plan to use too with the BX stuff. But I got into BX after advanced, if you can believe that, because I didn't want to buy the advanced stuff. Or honestly, I think it was just because the Earl Otis art that I bought the BX thing. That's why. Um, and then Rollmaster came around, and then I really got into Rollmaster. I dumped everything about D&D got dumped the second Rollmaster came out, as well as Champions or Hero System. Hero System and Rollmaster took over the rest of my high school era gaming stuff. And this is like, it was called Champions. I don't know if you're familiar with that at all, but
Yes.
yeah, it started as a superhero thing, vastly
Hmm.
superior to GURPS in my opinion now. I'm sure people will get upset about that. Anyway, so that was sort of the order that I went in those things. What about what was your first character that you played?
Yeah, the first character I wish I could remember the first character, but maybe I'll be able to remember the first character as I go through the basic little story, right? So, skip ahead a few years from my experience in school that I got ripped out of because my mom thought the teacher was a Satanist or whatever, and we moved around a lot, and I meet some new friends. We really just moved just 4 or 5 miles across town, and I and I'm wandering around the neighborhood or whatever, and I meet this kid and I borrow his bike, and he's like, "Hey, you can borrow my bike," and I'm like, "Okay, well, what's that all about?" And I just borrow his bike. It's this beat up yellow mongoose, right? And I borrow his bike, and I just kind of forget about him and just don't bring it back to him and stuff. I'm just wandering, running around
Right.
the townhouse complex or whatever in this bike, and then he finds me. He's like, "Hey, I would like my bike back," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's cool." And then we actually started talking and became friends, and a few of us became friends together, and started playing Atari 2600 and television, Coleco. The one kid had the Coleco, the other kid had the Intellivision, the other kid had the Atari 2600. I had nothing, And then the kid who had loaned me the bike was like, "Hey, I heard about this game, Dungeons and Dragons. You want to play?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And we're all like, "Yeah." There's like four of us or whatever. And he sits there and he just makes something up. There's no dice, no nothing. There's just a paper that he's like drawing on.
Wow.
We're real young.
Sure.
And yeah, and we play this thing and it becomes obsessively fascinating that afternoon. So whatever character I played at that time was whatever he told me to play. But then immediately after, we got a little money together. I might have, I don't know. I might have stole a little bit of money from my pops and went up and got a DMG and a basic set. Well, yeah, and I went and got this stuff, and I don't remember what the first character I played was, because I think really the first character I played was the guy that showed up in the red box who you would play through the sample adventure with, right? Whatever his name was, and then I invited my mom, because my mom saw this stuff, and I invited her to play the game and ran her through an adventure. She got instantly bored, and she was like, "Hey, no, this isn't satanic. This is just stupid." And then she left me alone forever about it. She got on satanic stuff later with metal, but she left me alone about it.
Quick interjection about Intellivision there. There were certain games in Intellivision where both controllers could work, even though it was the other person's turn. You could affect what was going on the screen. One of my remember for sure was the ski game, and you could like
right.
The other person could be going, and you could press on your thing and knock him into a flag. And I got away with that for years on my friend who owned Intellivision. I kept knocking him into the flag.
Yeah,
I was a little shit.
Yeah. Well, and I think I remember that, and I'm pretty sure we were all little shits.
Sure.
We did all kinds of stupid stuff.
Michael Dale has a question here, if you don't mind.
Yes.
Anytime. How did you first run into Rollmaster, hobby store shelf calling to you, friends, magazine? I had a much smarter, more well-adjusted kid who lived right next door to me during my transition from Catholic school to public school. So I was now in 7th grade. That it turned out that the one super smart guy who wouldn't let me cheat off him in math lived on the next block over, like almost exactly at our address on the next street over. And then this other kid who lived next door to us was also a much smarter, good student type of person who was a single kid, an only child whose parents, he got good grades and his parents bought him lots of stuff. He always had the best comics, all the best games and stuff. And he was a smart kid. And he introduced me to Champions and Rollmaster. So that's how I got into those. It's the frustrating thing is that he's since, gone on to probably shelve all that stuff out of his life because he's a more serious, intelligent person than I am. And I've just played the shit out of that stuff since then.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And to answer this, no, I don't think the teacher was a Satanist. I think, I think as far as I can remember back, and I really don't know, to be honest with you, I think she might have just been of a different sexual persuasion than normal back at that time. But I think that's all that was. But she was really smart, and those types of teachers I ended up appreciating, because I ended up having teacher-student relationships with them that were stimulating from an intellectual standpoint. But I did want to mention, because I started to lose my train of thought when I was talking about my introduction. So yeah, I got into those things, the BECMI and the AD&D stuff, and there was a store around the corner, right? It was called the Community Thrift Store. It was up in up in Orlando, where I grew up and lived. And I go to this community thrift store one day, and I go in there, and there's a B set and an X set with the Arrow Lotus art, and I had no idea that anything had come before AD&D and BECMI at that time. And I found them, and they were like $1.50 written on with like a wax crayon or whatever. And I got those, and I brought them back to my friends, and I'm like, "Look at this! I found the old history." And they stopped being involved with that, so I sort of became a loner in D&D until I would find people who would be, similarly involved, because these guys were older than me anyway.
That's too bad.
But yeah, she was not a Satanist. Probably. I mean, maybe.
I still I have a regular group of that I game with. We haven't been getting to do it that much recently, largely because of real life issues. The younger guy in the group, he's met a girl, and once that happens, it's just there's not as much time, which we totally get. My brother and I have had some family issues, some people pass away and stuff like that, and the other guy's a smart, busy guy, but this is my like regular, long time personal people I know in real life group, if that makes sense. And we had been playing. We played Rollmaster for about 15 years, and then about 5 or 6 years ago, well, we were doing Rollmaster and Hero, and about 5 or 6 years ago, I said, let's just change over to Hero System 5th edition and just play every genre in that system, because like GURPS, you can run any genre with it. And so for a while we had 4 of us, and 3 of us were running campaigns. So I would get to run my campaign for like 4 months, and then the next guy would take over and run his for like 4 months. That is a huge ratio to player ratio to GM. Like, to have 75% of the people in your group GMing things for like a 3 or 4 year period is amazing. I was really lucky to be involved in that. But I ran and I'm running this weekend. I'm running that this weekend. It is a pulp thing. It's just literal pulp. Like, it's Indiana Jones stuff might be in there, The Shadow, Flash Gordon, Cthulhu, just it's all of it. It's just pulp without focus. Every cool pulp trope I can fit in there gets put in there at some point.
Yeah, and that sounds cool. So you basically, with this gaming group, like, you've played with them for a long time. A lot of them, or
there's one guy,
a few of them, like 30, off and on.
Yeah, 30. One guy I've been playing with for like 30 years.
Right.
We met as adults, though we weren't childhood friends. And then another guy, it's been 10 years. We met through corporate contacts, job, meeting on the job. Right now, that 4th position is currently being filled with my brother. And my brother and I played a lot when we played Rollmaster and Champions. We played all this.
Sure.
I'm now remembering my first superhero.
Nice.
Champions. Crimson Cudgel was his name. Horrible name. Horrible name.
Yeah, man, I used to love making up superheroes. I would sit around and make up D&D characters and that sort of thing all the time, but making up superheroes in Marvel superheroes, DC Champions, it was a really heady time. That was fun because comic books had exploded. You always still had maybe your medieval background and what you liked about that, but making up guys that were super powered and could have really quirky stuff was always real interesting. The longest person that I continue to play with, so that first guy who run that game with no dice or anything, I ended up getting back in touch with him in 2006 because he had gone off to the military. He was like 5 years older than me. I ended up getting back with him in 2006, and we hung out a little while, but we were different. But about the same time, I ended up getting back together with somebody I met when I was 12, and off and on, we still game to this day on Saturday night. So that's pretty cool. That's a little over 40 years. But
Wow.
the players come and go. So when you can keep some sort of relationship, they'll come and go. They might pass away over time, because I always played with a lot of older players.
Mm.
But it's nice to hear groups that have been together for a long time. And that's one of the great things about role playing games in general, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's a, I view at least like working on a campaign as a little bit of therapy, if that makes sense, or at least creating a world is, I find, therapeutic. Um,
Right.
what was somebody, Michael saying, met as an adult, but friends for 30 years. I assume you don't mean 18. How old are you, Gonzalo? I didn't peg you as being in your. Yeah, no, I totally get it. I am very immature. I will be 59 here in within like a couple of weeks. So I'm actually
Oh,
quite old.
I didn't expect quite that. Yeah. I mean, I'm
Fuck,
not far behind you,
um,
you know.
fuck, dude, you're old. No, just yeah, I'm old, but I'm very very immature. So I make up for it in those ways.
I'm pretty sure I am, and I think well, I think Michael is too. Um,
I
you
don't
know.
sound it. Thank you. I mean, I like that I don't seem like someone of my age. It's a good thing. Like, it can be irritating to people when you're like in your 30s and 40s, but who do you want? You want cool grandpa, or you want grandpa telling you about how, who buys you a savings bond for your birthday every year? I mean, um,
Right, right. A couple shares of McDonald's stock or something.
yeah, tons of energy. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I figured you were like 85, Gonzalo. You're so curmudgeonly. I am a curmudgeonly hipster. That's how I would describe myself, as a curmudgeonly hipster. Um, but I find it all like, world creation therapeutic. Um, and one of the things, so I talked about the start playing thing. Is that okay? Is it cool if I talk about that? The start playing?
Yeah, yeah. I'm totally cool with that. I would assume that the audience is too. I didn't mean to glaze over it or whatever. Let
No,
me
no,
just
not at all. Not at all.
say howdy, Dave Mills. We're happy to have you.
Oh, we got 8 people watching. Wow, that's pretty nice. Good job. Um,
Yeah, yeah, not too bad. It's all you. They came
yeah, yeah,
they
yeah.
came for you.
Uh, uh, and the technical debt for the first half hour of not being able to get the.
Right, right. Oh boy.
Do you like waiting an extra half an hour for old guys who can't get their shit working? Then you're gonna love when
Hey,
Gonzalo's on the channel.
well, it actually seemed like while we were trying to fix it, I was looking over there and I'm like, ah, man, what am I going to do? And they were like building a community. So
Yeah.
that's kind of cool.
So I picked the BX for obvious reasons. It's a simple system that you can easily homebrew, which I am home. It's basically BX, but I'm homebrewing it. But I'm very consistent with my homebrew. I'm not somebody who just is, everything's constantly shifting under your feet like quicksand. I have very specific ideas that I use, and um, I like creating like a lot of the cultural stuff. So I'm a little more interested in overland adventures and political social slash intrigue and role playing. I mean, I like combat. You go marching off into the across the wilderness, you're gonna encounter things and have combat, but I tend to leave like dungeons for like once a year or something like that, where you really have a reason to go into some ruins or something. Like the rest of the time it's like, you know border disputes, or getting invaded by goblins, or you know what I'm saying, a little more like kind of, I don't know, open air stuff, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely makes sense. And my buddy that I was talking about before that runs our Saturday night game, or every other Saturday night game, has sort of created. It had never occurred to me, but he had created sort of a political intrigue sandbox inside of a larger city. Um, and I find it real interesting. Now, sometimes we'll run across dungeons and stuff like that, and there's plenty of opportunity for combat, uh, particularly regarding political intrigue and stuff like that. Do you in that type of game? Is there like what's the chance that a group is just going to run across a random dungeon that you didn't
Um,
necessarily prepare for or
it's
expect? Or
well, it's possible. Uh, I don't. The problem for me, of like random, it depends on what you mean by random. If you're talking about something that the encountering of it is random, um, then that's possible. But I'm not a huge fan of like procedurally generated dungeons, or dungeons that don't make sense for why they exist. I mean, sometimes they're cool, like stuff like White Plume Mountain, where it's literally a
right,
wizard whose whole thing is to create this thing. Who, if anyone can solve it, they get these treasures. That's a cool idea, but you can only do stuff like that so many times. I prefer ruins to have some kind of cultural um, connection to the area, and for the ruins to have real meaning as to what like they served a function. They're not just a crazy maze that you stumble into once a year. This thing served a function. So I'm not a huge fan of like confusing maze, mega dungeon stuff like that. I tend to like to create, if I can't find a map, I tend to try to create a map and a dungeon that has a reason. And so for that reason, it takes me a little longer. Does that make sense?
yeah, yeah, it makes perfect sense. And I go back and forth between those things. One thing that I generally don't do, I mean, there's such a breadth of RPG material available now, that I don't really do procedural dungeon generation much anymore. Whether that's using a procedural tool or roll tables or whatever, sure, I might use some tables to fill out something, but after a certain point in time, you become proficient enough with it that you can like stock a room, just out of your mind or whatever. But I kind of agree with that. I think that there are so many materials available that the random chance of somebody ending up finding a dungeon, and I can just grab a dungeon that's either in my mind or something that's on paper or PDF or whatever, and bring it in to the scenario is the way that I'll typically handle that. But Michael asked a good question with regard to what you were just talking about, because it's specific to world and location creation. So how do you go about that usually?
Well, um, I usually steal a map that I find laying around the internet, because
Right.
I don't have the patience um, to do maps. Or I'll put it this way: I don't have the time. I do have a full time job, so, and side hustles. So I only have so much time, and I prefer to spend my time writing and like verbally describing the world, and then trying to fit stuff to that. So it's not a serious. I'm not someone like the Delver who is a serious creator of module content and stuff like that. But I am a good storyteller, and I think a very good GM, and I am good at building cultures and lores around these sort of collected things that I find. I do you can you go into Roll20 and share what it looks like for you for the content that I created for this BX game, or is that something that I can do?
I think you can do it. I haven't used StreamYard in quite some time, but I think you can share
All
right
right,
in there. But I can also open up a browser
let's
tab
take a
and
look. How so? I've got
work
a
on getting
share.
there.
There's a share thing here. Share screen. All right, let me make sure. Besides this, I don't have any inappropriate browser
Yeah,
tabs
don't.
open or anything.
Yeah, none of that Satanist
Right.
material and chick tracks,
Hey, if you see
Gonzalo.
your mom this weekend, would you be sure and tell her, Satan, Satan, Satan? Butthole surfers. All right, so let's see if I.
Yes.
Okay, share screen is easy. It's with two monitors. Okay, share screen. No. So, oh, wait a minute. It's a different. Choose what to share. Okay, so it's got to be in the same. Oh crap. Okay, so it has to be in the same browser for me to do that, and I'm using a different browser for
Does
this
it?
than I am for Roll20. So I'll try. You know what? Let me try this. Let me try opening this in Roll20 here and seeing. Boy, there's
Yeah,
just
if
so
you
many.
can't, it looks like I can. So,
Oh, okay. Well, why don't you do it then? Because that way it's strictly the player view of someone who would be looking at. Okay, so I've got you there, and you should be able
right.
to. That's just the starting screen. But if you go over to the right hand side and go to there's a little book up there, and go to the journal at the very top along the very yeah, there you go. Okay, so now you can see I've got all kinds of folders and stuff, and mostly what I've been doing is populating the world setting with things. Like, just to give you an example, let's start with um, the locations. You see the locations folder down. You have to scroll down a little bit. So
Yeah,
the
right
if
here.
you look at the top level, you've got like the Western world. Can you click on that? And it should give you, and now if you right click on that image and open it, you can make an even bigger version, but I don't know if it'll share it. Yeah, anyway, so that's good enough. So I found this map. I can't remember where, and I'm not trying to not give this person credit or whoever, like wherever I found this map. I have been collecting images from the internet since the late 90s. Just any cool thing I ever saw on the internet, I was like, oh, that's cool, I'm keeping that. And just so where I got this is, maybe someone in the crowd can tell me what this is a map of. But here's what I really liked about this map. It looks very much like a very well done MERP map, which is Middle Earth role playing game in its style, and it has no names or boundaries or anything on it. So I can just do
Right.
what I can turn this into whatever I want because they have not written names or anything on it. I sort of took that as a, hey, here's something to put whatever you want on it. It's just for
Yeah.
people to use. Now, if the guy's wrong and wants to reach out to me or something, that's fine. But once again, 30 years is a long time to be downloading stuff and saving them. Anyway, so that's the main
Yeah.
map of the world. I like the map. It looks good. If you go down to, like, okay, like the next, like, close this and then there's a political borders of the Western world map, um, which
Oh,
this
okay, here we go.
yeah, this is a map of the political and cultural regions. Stuff that has got like orange borders is humanic or possibly halfling. Remember, but this is BX. So there's humans, elves, dwarves, and halflings, and
Right, racist class.
yeah,
Yeah.
elves, dwarfs, and halflings are a class in this game. So you can see, like, if you see like a green letter that doesn't really have any borders around it, those are like typically elvish areas. They aren't really quote unquote countries. Then you've got, like, you know, orange are typically human, except for and just different cultures and stuff like that. So you can see what a gift that map was. Just that I was able to whoever did it put no writing. Now, I've just come up with names of things that I've stole. Like Drowned Kingdom that's a cool sounding name. I stole that from uh, a video game called Myth 2. There was a Soul Blighter, and I just
Right.
like the name of it. It sounds cool. I'm using it. So uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then you've got regions of the world map under that, um, which are these are just sort of um, cultural regions that may cross political boundaries. Mountain range names, wood names. You can see you got the Barrowlands at the very southern tip of the map, the Wild Steppe at the top. Here, if you look at the lake that takes up the central part of this region of the world, the Evermere, there's an elvish
Right.
region called Imminent Grove. That's a name taken from A Wizard of Earthsea, if you've ever read that. It's just a cool
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a cool name. Why wouldn't I mean, so
It is a cool name.
I've only got so much time. Like I said, I'm not trying to make a living at this, but I do think I am decent about throwing other people's concepts together into a workable thing. Um,
It- yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think in any sort of medium and way that you can share the game with other people is, is a meaningful endeavor, right? And I like the style of these maps. I like the way that they're separated out into individual layers, right? So you basically have the base world that you've taken. I mean, it would be no different than if you had designed it yourself, and then you have a couple of different layers on it, kind of like stuff from the Greyhawk Folio, Greyhawk box
yeah,
set,
yeah.
where you'd have the map, you'd have the political map, you'd have the topological map, and just different layers that can be melded together to create something. And you mentioned this does remind me of the map out of say the Hobbit or something with the Mirkwood
Yep.
and whatnot. And I only got to play Merp for a couple of months when I was like maybe 14 or something like that, and I loved it. Loved
Um,
it.
so you can
So I
see that
like looking at this.
if you look under that, there's a countries folder, and that
Right.
matches up with the political border. Like I think I've even got all the like if you click on one of them, you can just pull it up. It has a little map of let's see, which one did you open there? You did
Eildorn.
okay, Eldorn. Yeah, this is an elvish forest, and I've exactly copied the style of the Greyhawk Folio in terms of you know how just the basic top level information, major cities.
Right.
This is all my idea. Like all these cultures and stuff and names and stuff are just my idea, which honestly I would rather create stuff and just know it because I created it than read stuff, have to read a bunch of stuff. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah, yeah, totally. Um, yeah, and you've got some links here. I don't know if they just auto formatted those links or whatever.
Yeah, it's
But
goofy formatting.
yeah, yeah, but I like that, and it is laid out in a similar way to World of Greyhawk type of stuff or whatever, and they give you in that particular setting they give you just enough information to work with without feeling constrained, and
Now
you've
here,
probably done that here,
yeah.
except giving yourself a little more to work with because it's your own world, right?
Um, I think one of the things that like hope I'm trying. I would like people to people at least are familiar with me, how I am as a gamer from Delver's thing. I'm hoping that will some people will reach out and say, hey, I'd like to try something, and this is what it's going to be if I do something like that.
Right.
Um, and the other thing I was going to say, so now something to touch on, because I know people can. I don't want to be disingenuous or anything. I don't not like people can't tell, but the art that I'm using for a lot of this is AI generated with Midjourney. I have um, I don't have the time or money to track down a real artist to create stuff for a just getting paid over the internet campaign. If I were publishing something on a mass scale and it was a game that I claimed that, like, I created a game or I created official content for sale, I would absolutely use a real artist. Having said that, I think that I am, at least able to create interesting looking things with Midjourney for this. Like the banner, the little banner that is I've started using as my little avatar was created with AI. I mean, it looks like a real, tapestry.
Yeah, yeah, it does. And if you can hold some of the thought on your world, I want to use this because I want to pivot into that for a
Sure,
moment if
sure,
you've
yeah,
got time and
absolutely.
whatnot. But we'll use Michael Dale to pivot because he's always some sort of inappropriate segue or appropriate depending.
Seems appropriate.
So you yeah, they're a bunch of I can't even say
You
it.
maniac.
Humaniacs. Yeah, yeah, you got to watch out for them humanic guys. Um, so right, so AI, right? So first off, and I don't want to soapbox this in any way, but the tools that you have available to you as a DM make your game better for the players, right? We never had this, and we never had that opportunity. Now that could be a little bit of a double edged sword because maybe we learned to describe things better,
Yeah.
but but you could never really describe something that looks quite like uh this banner here, right? You could say, yeah,
It's got a wolf on it.
it's a it's a tan wolf with a black mane on a red background and some sort of some sort of runic marks along the lower edge. But you can't present that to anybody. And old TSR modules would have handouts. Some of them would. Even Judges Guild stuff would have handouts and uh, these various types of things. But now basically anybody can do that. So the demonization of AI use in anybody's personal game is entirely pointless.
I
From
agree with that. However, I do want to point out that I am gonna pay. I am running this for money, so I am making money on this. Which I don't think there's a problem with either. But there is a distinction between that and a personal game where I'm not making any money, and I do plan to try to charge to be a DM for this.
yeah, and it's. I think it's worthy of mentioning that, but at the same time, I think that at this point, and this is purely personal opinion. I think at this point that AI, even though it might have come about in a sort of nefarious and unexpected way, which we'll likely never get to the bottom of, is here to stay, right? And from my perspective, disclosure of AI use is more than enough, regardless of whatever you're using it
I
for.
just like to be straight.
Until court systems, yeah. So for me, there's nothing to feel bad about with that at all. I think people will like your game better for it, and it's just a matter of disclosure. I mean, most people who are going to play in this aren't going to think that you
I wove
that you
this.
sat there for 90 days and wove some sort of tapestry right by hand.
Um, but if you go up to the top, and this is since we're touching on this topic of art, if you go up to the heraldry, you can see I've got realm and spiritual tabs. So
Right.
yeah, so that Byrock is and there's I think I've started adding the descriptions, the same descriptions that I had on the countries, are here in the heraldries of that region as well. And these are
Yeah.
all I've created all these banners and stuff with AI. Um, there's some the spiritual ones are, I think, like I come up with like that one right there is also another one that I told it to make it look like a tapestry. I don't know if you can, probably people watching the channel can't see this, but um this is another one that, like, it looks like it literally a sewn thing. Like it uh um and I do think this kind of stuff, you know, helps with uh well, I forget. These are like spiritual heraldries, but if you go to deities, which is further down below, I have the actual represent, like what the actual deities can like would look like. So there's a difference between the banner for a religion and what the real thing, like that tapestry with the tree on it,
Right.
is a weaving for the religion around this tree.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Um, and so while I have this resource, I'm trying to create as much of this art as I can to try to make. I originally was like using, and I asked you about this. I was originally using the BX Errol Otis stuff when you first log into the game as a, like, hey, this is a BX game. But since I'm doing so much AI art for the world, I decided, you know what, I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna make it everything's going to be created by me in the style I want it to be created in. And it may not be, um, here's the thing. I can get, you know, 80% of the way to what I want things to look like, every time. And it's not like me having to hunt some stuff down on the internet and like, well, this is kind of close, but it's not really the same. And then differing artist styles and stuff like that. You can create with AI, you can create a cohesive look to a world and a campaign that there's just no way you could do as just a dude running a pay to play game. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, and I agree with that 100% because the cohesiveness is what's really alluring to me as both a game master and a player. It wasn't at all possible.
Oh yeah.
Way back when you could scan things or photocopy them. As you might at the convenience store for 5 or 10 cents, cut out things, glue them to some crappy piece of parchment paper you bought for way too much money or whatever. But this is an entirely different thing, and that leads me to my next point is that this is not done without skill, right? So, what does your workflow look like on something like this? Because in order to create that sort of cohesiveness, it's not like you're just going to go into an AI session and be like, hey, create me a tree, and then go back again and say, hey, create me a tapestry that represents a tree and get the same thing, right? Like this takes effort, right?
Well, honestly, it does take effort. I don't know how much skill it takes, but it does take effort. And honestly,
Right.
it's what it takes is playing around with prompts and just seeing what sticks and what things return, and then you start narrowing. You find something you can live with, and then start um, splitting it off into, you like, okay, well, give me four versions of this, but vary it slightly, or vary it, creatively, or there's all these options. So you have something that you're like, okay, I like what they tried to do here. This looks more like what I want things in my world to look like. So let's follow this path and refine that. And eventually you get to a point of where you are doing varying regions. You can do like a little dotted line around an area where like there's some little hallucination artifact or something in there that you don't want to be in the image, and you select it and tell it, say, vary this region, and the AI just changes it to something else that hopefully stays within the fitting of the image. And that seems to work pretty decently. Most of it is just slightly changing the prompt and varying things until you guide it down a path towards what you're looking for. Um, you can give it, you know, instructions like things like photorealistic or in a Renaissance style, or so you can give it a lot of descriptors to give it an idea of what kind of style you're wanting. But the problem is you get a lot of weird, like, misshapen things in there, and you really have to go over the images and like, okay, I really like this, but his hand is backwards, so you have to go in and vary that area over and over until it finally gives you a decent hand there. So
Right.
it's really a matter of stick to itiveness. And I honestly, I don't look at it most other people's AI art that they do. I just don't, it because it's I know we're talking about it, but the only reason I'm using it is to further me being a GM and tell a story. That's as far as my interest goes in it. So I could care less
Yeah.
what other people's stuff looks like. I like what it looks like, and it represents what I want it to represent. But I'm quite sure that I'm pretty sure there are people out there that would laugh at me uh, posting these things if I were like, "Hey guys, check out my AI art." Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's really good people at it.
Yeah, well, and that's the other point, really, right? Is that I think that a lot, particularly corporate artists, are using it in at some point during their workflow, even if they're going back and cleaning it up with Illustrator. If they're using it to wireframe something out, they're using it for infilling in Photoshop or something like that. And the backlash against it is, in my opinion, a little bit uh, unfounded, particularly if it's used in a purpose like this that you've disclosed, whether or not you're making money off of it. Because we live in a society where if you put out an art book and you say, "Hey, listen, this art book was created with AI," people don't have to buy it if they don't want to, right?
True, true.
Um,
There was a
so
I was look I don't have that information in here, but one of the things that um so I showed you some stuff on Discord of, like, cultural stuff
yeah,
that I've like done for each of these regions. And I'm trying to see. So essentially my style of how I look at trying to do this. Like, roll 20 is like a virtual tabletop like anything else, right? You can have tons of macros, and you can have character sheets that people have created that are built, that are automated to play in that system, and you just click buttons and it rolls dice. And there's a lot of value in that, and people love that stuff, and I totally understand it. I don't have anything against doing things that way at all. That is not how I will be doing things. However, what I will be mostly, you'll have a character sheet, and you'll have one or two stats that will get measured on your token. Hit points, you may just have hit points that'll go up and down, and damage. You'll have to apply the damage yourself, but it's trackable on the token. But other than that, I would rather incur rule related or game related debt, that, like, learning the rules debt, than incur technical debt of me having to, like, tweak everything and get everything working just right, when, especially with a system like BX, it's that effort is much better put into everybody just learning the rules well enough to play, so that when I say roll this or roll that, they just know the rules. And to that end, if you look under charts and rules, I have screenshots of clips from the BX system. So they can find, the rules are all right here. If we want to look them up, they're very well organized. I don't know if you can see that or not. It's like attack tables, um, damage, dwarves, elves, encounters, and I've got some, I think some, Yeah, so if you look at the encounters one, this has got some homebrew stuff in it. If you want to see, so it's got the basic encounter stuff from the book, but if you scroll down, I've got homebrew rules at the bottom of this. Um, and these may change. I'm still in the process of coming up with these, but this uses I've incorporated a little bit of a um, action percentage homebrew system in this, where certain things take up all or part of the action you have in a round, in a combat round. So you can, standing up takes half the combat round. So if you have to stand up and draw your weapon, then you can't attack in that round. This is very
Right.
much inspired from like Rollmaster, and I've got some notes on magic user spells cast by magic users versus elves and clerics. Um, so everything should be here. That as the GM, I will obviously be carrying the heavy load on how the rules work and letting people know how everything works. However, all the stuff will be here for reference. I'd much rather people be spending their time looking through stuff like this and learning the rules than figuring out why isn't my macro working. I mean, that's just my style, and it probably will go down in flames, but I'm going to try it.
Oh well, I don't think it will because I spent a number of years running games with VTTs just like that. Right. And one of the reasons was for the very reasons that or some of the reasons were for the very reasons that you mentioned. And it actually reminds me of something that I dislike about VTTs. And you'll see a lot of guys do this, on YouTube channels or something like this. There's a few of them out there that will do live plays and they'll play 3 different games a week or 4 different games a week, all different rule sets and all that, just based on whatever the VTT gives them. That's
Right.
not really playing by the rules because if you dig into VTTs, either as a game master or a dedicated player or a developer or somebody who's really proficient and recognizes that rule set in its entirety and all the complexities and stuff, you'll find that most of the stuff that's incorporated in the VTT or most of the stuff in the actual rule set is not incorporated in the VTT. So what people will do is they'll say, "Hey, today we're going to play." I don't know, man. You could say anything really. We're going to play 3.5, right? And they just bring up a rule set in a VTT, and whatever it has is whatever it has, and they think that they're actually playing that game. Whereas the developer might not have any of the full suite of rules and complexities built in to that rule set. So that's one problem that I really have with VTTs is that they end up dumbing down the rule set and sort of smoothing it out, right? It's like kind of like a photocopy, right? You make a photocopy and then you photocopy it again, and you lose resolution with
Uh,
with with each copy. And VTTs typically have the lowest resolution because it's whatever anybody can fit in.
my number one rule for running tabletop role playing games is uh, the first player you should try to get in your game is a rules lawyer. You should always
Yeah,
have a
yeah,
rules lawyer in your game.
an
I
expert.
Yeah, I mean, I know the rules, that's fine. But sometimes I forget things, or I get mixed up, and maybe I'm making a wrong call. It's good to have someone there who will. I want them, looking at the rules and making their own interpretations and challenging me on things. I want to be pressured like that because, first of all, they're engaged with the actual game, the rule system, and secondly, I'm the GM. I can just shut them down if I want to. So there's no, there's no. I'm never playing with Gonzalo ever again. What? Why? What did I? I don't know. Well, first of all,
Maybe Star Frontiers.
uh,
We can just switch back.
I don't have a copy of Star Frontiers. I did have it when I was younger. I did have Star Frontiers.
It's an amazing game.
I honestly, I once Hero System came out, anything for sci-fi was, I just used Hero System,
Sure.
and it made it easier. Uh, he's, he's definitely not a rules lawyer in the Friday night game. I don't. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't. I mean, I don't. I'd be interested. You guys have heard me game. Like, I'm interested in some feedback. Like, if you don't mind me asking, what do you guys have any pointers about? Maybe I'm, how I am as a player or anything. As long as we got a couple of people I've played with here. I mean, you
Oh,
got any
nice.
critiques or?
Yeah, I mean, I've played with you. I don't. No, I can't think of a single critique really,
Gotcha.
I'm being perfectly honest. I feel like you're engaged. I feel like you're smart. I feel like you take appropriate charge. I feel like you give everybody their breathing room. I mean, we didn't play for a super long, but we played for what, like a year or something like that. Um, yeah.
Oh, thanks, great old ones.
Let's
Oh, so
see.
yeah, he's saying so. Yeah, but you bring rules
Well,
lawyers
we
to
got to
the.
go with Cooley first.
Oh yeah. So,
It's not that you're a bad player. You are awesome, but you bring the rules lawyers to the table.
but here's why you do it. If you're the GM, you're the GM. You're still the final arbiter. All they can do is read the rules to you, and that gives, and you let them do it, and you more than likely do it the way the rules say. But there might be, if you like, you can see I have homebrew stuff in here. Someone might not read that. They might see the handout but not read all the way down to the homebrew rules, and not realize that I have my own way of doing certain things. So I love that they get it right and tell me, and then I 80% of the time I probably do what they say, but the other 20% of the time I'm like, nah, I'm doing it this way. I'm the GM. That's how it is. As long as you do it
Yeah, and
consistently, it shouldn't be a problem.
well, and I will say that if you have a rules lawyer, there's a couple different types of rules lawyers, right? And I get both perspectives. There's the antagonistic, competitive rules lawyer. The it goes well beyond min maxing and all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And then you have the rules lawyer who will point out to you inconsistency and flaws in rulings over a period of time based on a ruling that you made previously
Yeah.
or a ruling in the book if they want to stick purely to core rules. And like for something like 3.5 or Pathfinder or something that's really complex, you almost kind of need that. You almost kind of have to have that. For something simpler, or for something simpler, you might not need to, but for something that has house rules that you want to maintain consistency with, yeah, you might want to have that. I know Cooley's just playing around for the most part.
I'm
Anyway,
not saying I can talk
um,
shit.
yeah. Well, talk as much shit
Oh
on this
yeah.
channel as you
Well,
want.
I heard your mother started drinking again. How do you like that?
So Great Old One's channel, he likes your play style. He thinks you're a great player.
He's paid to say that.
Um, well, yeah. This guy, Brad. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to call you this guy, but you're the other, not the other one, not
Nope,
the other one.
not the other one.
No, Brad, no, the other one. Right. So Brad, no, the other one likes having another player that's a rules lawyer, keeping him honest, and
Yeah,
Andy in Friday's game, he's not pushy.
uh, yeah, I'm not sure what great old one is saying there. Are you saying Andy is not pushy, or I'm not pushy, or that uh, I'm not quite sure what the point is there. Andy's a player who plays a magic user in our campaign, and he knows the his spells inside and out. Uh, you
Good.
you can rest assured that he will use his spells to their greatest possible effect. And yeah, like having Andy play magic users, and that we're doing. That's Great Old One's thing that he does on Friday nights. That he does that on Start Playing. That's how I started playing with him.
Oh,
Is on
right.
Start Playing, and yeah, that's a we got like 8 guys. I think 7 or 8 guys in that, and every other week now. And so since we were doing it every week, and since he's going to every other week, I thought, well, you know what, I'm going to try to. This thing in Roll20 here is the beginning of me trying to um, give people a little taste of me being a GM, and doing it with a very basic system and a world that I created, um, as a sort of baby step to, eventually, hopefully, like having like West March's Rollmaster servers going. Yeah. So,
Right, right, right. And I think I think that's really, and that's kind of the whole point of what I'm trying to do here with like these live streams and stuff is get us, all of us, out there in the open to know what each of us is doing, to sort of, you know, kind of, because none of us really get, I don't know how to say it without sounding gay or whatever, but none of us really get seen, right? Or at least a lot of us don't, unless you have some sort of social media presence and all of this other kind of stuff. And doing these things feels like something that I can give back to the community, and have people like you and Great Old Ones and these kinds of guys to talk about, what we can do to continue playing in these games, being that some of us don't have our old friends anymore. Some of us just watch these videos for like entertainment and stuff. And you shouldn't just watch these for entertainment. I'm not going to say this is particularly entertaining. Maybe it is to people, but you should get in there and play the game, and especially
can I?
with people who you like. Yes,
Do you,
sir.
do you mind if I give you here, and I'm gonna give you the link to my Roll20? Do you mind if I do that?
No, no, not at
And
all.
I
Not
don't
at
know if
all.
it'll let you put it in the chat or not, but there it is in Discord. This is if people
Oh, okay.
just want to join the game and look around as I'm developing things. Eventually, this thing will launch, and it'll be, you know, every other week. I just want to. I'm just trying to gauge interest. If people know me a little bit and want to check into it, that'd be cool. Um, and then we'll just see what happens.
All right, I think I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna have to paste that in here. I don't know if it'll take it.
There you go. Yeah. See if that takes
I
you
don't know if
into it.
it'll take it the other way.
Well, you'll have to,
There we go.
if you don't have an account, you'll obviously have to create an account. Um, everybody's got their favorite, VTT. I personally like Roll20, because I feel like it's very, I can organize content the way I want it organized, but it's a very, the web-based approach is one that I really like. Um, Andy is the rule
Yeah.
player. Yes, he is. It's light. It's lightweight, and it's if the GM is, as you can see, like I think I'm doing a decent job of organizing the information in there and just making sure that the players have quick access to what to any information they need. When you're not, for example, if it's combat, you shouldn't be poking around into the like location section during combat. But if there's some lengthy role play and to which your character is not a central part, there'll be plenty of stuff for you to read about the world setting to have a better understanding of what the cultures are, what the conflicts are, what the weird stuff in the world is, and it's there if they want to make use of it. So I feel like people who people who want to make use of a world setting and really want to like act on the world setting and not just have it be a string of connected dungeons will be the type of people who would like what I do.
Yeah, and the stuff that you're doing here is the stuff that I endeavor to do. When I'm trying to run a campaign, but most times nowadays, I've been more involved with sort of helping other people
Sure.
set up their games to see what works and stuff, especially with irritating development and things like that in VTTs. But this is exactly or similar to how I would set it up. And at this point, I expect that as a player, and I would greatly appreciate um, the additional lore and the depth of the subject matter that you can just get into as a player on your own. Now, I won't pass up the opportunity for Michael to plug my product on my video, I suppose, or our video. But yeah, I'm going to talk more about that at some point. Um, and Cooley brings up, thank you, Michael. And Cooley brings up a good point. I do like Foundry a lot in terms of web based. I find it fantastic. I haven't used Roll20 too much. I had created an account back in so I moved to where I am now. I had a situation that caused me to move away from where I lived for a good portion of my life and move closer to South Florida, and ended up starting a family here and all that stuff. But that was in what 2009 or something. And I think Roll20 and like meetup.org or something had just started, and I left my D&D group, and I had looked at it back then, but never looked at it again until you showed me this. Although I've seen people using Roll20 and stuff, but I am pretty familiar with Foundry, and I like that. But it seems like Roll20 has come a long way. Go ahead.
No, as long as by gauge you mean measure and not stretching out our interests with stinky hoops. I guess I'm trying to interpret the meaning here, Michael. It seems like you think that you get like you never get to the point. Is that a concern with this kind of setting? Is that there's never any point to anything, and it's just all about the culture, and you're not hitting milestones, I guess is what I'm taking from that. I don't know if I'm correctly interpreting what you're saying or not, but I'm trying to.
Well, that might be your first mistake.
Okay. What am I missing?
No,
then?
I don't know.
I mean, so for example, for a long time I was talking about I have another game on Roll20 that I've been doing development on. I posted a bunch of stuff in Delver's Discord about it. It's the Berghoff AD&D stuff, and I posted a lot of AI art and like stuff I created for that for Berghoff, which is an area of Greyhawk. And so that's got a lot of so I've got that, and I've got my pulp game, and they're all on Roll20, and I've invested a significant amount of time creating content on here, and I have files and stuff on here. It would be a huge pain to migrate to a different VTT for me at this point. Not saying I wouldn't potentially do it, but I would have to be convinced that there's a good reason why I should try something like Foundry instead of Roll20. I don't think, I mean, people have their reasons, but the reasons for me to change to something else would need to include why it would be so much better at the other place. And so far, I
Sure.
don't have that.
Yeah, sure, and especially if you're running, basically the type of game that you've described that you're going to run. VTT is a matter of perspective, right? And what it is that you want to achieve. So if you're attempting to run a game where everything's automated, well, for the most part, Fantasy Grounds is where you're going to want to do that,
Yes, that's
right?
what we do
If
on Friday nights. We use Fantasy Grounds.
Yeah, because that's going to be the most automated system, especially for old school games. That's available out there. If when it comes down to uh, whether or not you want a whole bunch of bells and whistles or not many at all or whatever, you can choose back and forth between Roll20 and Foundry, and if you're basically running a hybrid type of system where players are expected to know the rules and there's sort of theater of the mind plus graphical stuff. I mean, it doesn't really matter which of them you choose from my perspective,
I've got
right?
uh,
Especially if you have a bunch of stuff in here already.
yeah. Once again, yeah. I mean, it works for what I'm trying to do. The other thing I wanted to briefly touch on is the thing that I showed you on Discord, and I can't share it here, and I don't have it uploaded yet. But do you remember the cultural items of quality table that I shared with you over Discord?
Yeah,
It's a it's a it's basically what it is just um flavor. They're like cantrip items, if that make they're a combination of flavor and cantrip items, meaning they're not strictly like powerful magic items or anything, and most of them are not in any way magic, but they're just like near water wool hooded cloak from halflings of near water and Byrock, protects to negative degrees 10 degrees Celsius, water resistant weave, only fits halflings or dwarves. Not really a magic item,
right.
but it's just an item of quality. And like I've got, um, there's a Karen Gavarian picks, thieves tools, um, the Karangavarian dwarves, mostly from Dahur or Dural, +5 to open locks, more likely to leave obvious signs of tampering on the lock. I mean, it gives you a little bit. They're a little bit stronger, but they're dwarven items, and they tear up the lock a little more. And so I'm just compiling like these things that everybody knows you can get this if you're in this land or whatever. Just sort of subtle, interesting things in addition to not quite really magic items, more cultural items of interest.
Right, and I think that's really cool flavor because it sort of adds context to the various cultures, races, um, and that kind of thing, and
You
I
can
I like it a lot.
you can introduce role play too. If there's people who are really into actually figuring out the world, it can generate all kinds of questions and interests and role play, and that's my goal. Hopefully that's other players goal as well.
Right. I'm just trying to go through these here that I missed. Yeah, great old ones. Preferred is Fantasy Grounds, but he knows Foundry as well. And Foundry allows you to automate stuff and has a better character sheet. Roll 20 is better for off the cuff changes and such.
I have rule set wizard and it helps, but it's still massive pain in the a.
Yeah, yeah. It
So
is. It is very very difficult. Hmm.
Foundry's JavaScript, but like rule set wizard, I'd have to devote a lot of time to relearn it. I mean, yeah, well, and I'd like to think that my approach to how I'm going to run this game, by not having a lot of technical debt, not a lot of stuff automated, distills it down to just the game and so people will be less worried about, oh, I'm used to doing things this way. Well, this is just the BX rules basically. So if you know BX, this should be no problem for you.
Right, right. And there's something, again, going back to something I said before, I think there's something to be said for, rather than relying on the VTT to tell you what the rules of the game are, learn the damn rules, right? And that's what all players should do, and all DMs should endeavor, or GMs or whatever, should endeavor to make sure that their players know that. And there's a few different ways to pursue that. I think like what you've done here does that. The other way, if you're using a heavily automated VTT, such as Fantasy Grounds, for example, or even some of the more complex rule sets in Foundry, then it's basically gatekeeping out people who refuse to learn the rules, and I think most people, most GMs who are worth their salt would do that.
Well, I think
Um,
Childish, cool. How do you pronounce that?
Cooley,
Cooley,
at least, yeah, I believe so.
Cooley. So, uh, you know, all I'm really using Roll20 for is the same shit I would use it for if I were playing with people face to face. That's really all I'm using it for the maps and handouts. I would, if I were playing with anyone face to face, all the stuff that the imagery and the cultural content and stuff, this would all be handouts I would hand out to everybody. And the real difference is Roll20 just allows me it's just better than me mapping things out physically. I don't remember the name of the stuff that Delver used, the pre-built like dungeon paths and stuff like that. I would
The Dwarven Forge,
Yeah,
yeah,
Dwarven Forge. I used the hex map, like dry erase hex map stuff. Um,
yeah. That's what I've always used: Chess X, Mega Mat,
yeah,
Battle Mat,
yep,
whatever.
yep,
Yeah.
and but frankly, Roll20 looks way better than when I draw that stuff out. This is just it's the mapping is 90% of the reason why I use Roll20. And also, I don't another thing, this is in my theme of keeping technical overhead down, is I don't use, and I know Great Old Ones disagrees with me, I don't use dynamic lighting. I don't like dynamic lighting. It's not needed for me, and as a GM personally, if you've gone into the next room, your memory isn't wiped. You can't see in there, and I may not tell you what's in there, and I might say, oh, you need to make a roll to make sure you remember the right way, but I don't need the old parts of the exposed map to be covered up so the players can't see it. The 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 dynamic lighting is distracting, and it has bugs, and it's just better left alone, in my opinion.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do tend to agree with Great Old Ones there on the dynamic lighting. That's one of the primary reasons I use it. I mean, at a certain point, but I constantly evolve in the way that I like to imagine myself using the VTTs. Yeah, because again, I don't have a game running right now, and I've leaned more towards the concept of because initially I would build out a full map and have people walk through the map. Sometimes I'd assign a main character, have the other characters follow them. I play in a game where there's a full map and everybody wanders around, and that works great. I play in a game where there's partial maps and everybody wanders around or gets locked, all of that stuff. But I do like the lighting. At some point, though, the lighting is less of a concern because everybody's going to have magic necessary to make it not an issue, generally speaking. But I do like the token lighting and the visibility, and I like the ambiance that it can create, particularly with new players or players who are have novice characters in a dungeon, you know. But it's really to each their own. But I kind of move between allowing everyone to move around and the concept of, hey, I'm sitting at the table and we all have theater of the mind always until it's time to draw on the battle map, right?
I do use
everybody who's played that way knows, right? The DM's like, okay, wipe off the battle map,
yes,
and the players wipe it off, and then he gets out his pen,
the map
and
with
it's like
pieces of paper, the areas they haven't seen yet. You're laying pieces of paper over it because you pre-drawn it because it's way too complex to draw on the fly before they get there.
Right.
Once
Yeah, I mean we've all done it numerous ways. What do you think? Right. So I think VTTs are best just used as a mean to show a map with what is that, field of view? I might just be dumb. And allow the players to communicate. Roll real dice, use paper character sheets, etc.
I mean, that's always good. But I will say the mapping on Roll20 is just better than I can do. That is a vast improvement that will always be better than anything that I could do person to person. And honestly, yeah, I do use Michael Dale. I do use Fog of War. So like, if you come into a new map, the Fog of War is on. But as I expose areas that the players can see, I just leave them exposed. I don't have it become dark once they, you know, go into another area. They remember what was there. That just because they can see the map doesn't mean that they can see in there. It just means, you know, you still have to go back there if you want to look in there. Once again, it's the I may have some like auditory and visual OCD coming into play here. Like the dynamic lighting just bugs me, and I just don't like it. So you know, it doesn't really hurt the game. Keeps things moving. I like to keep things moving, and I like to. I really like to allow the players as much agency as possible. I really let the players talk things out and decide things, and I'm not a huge like if you go to an area, I you know I'm not a huge just constant wandering monsters. There may be an objective involved, and they may have backups and stuff like that. They may be able to re-garrison and stuff like that, but I don't just spam wandering monster rolls. I like the time to be spent on the real storyline, which may be a storyline that the characters have created whole cloth just from conversations they've had at a tavern or something in my world that have nothing to do with any adventure story hook that I've thrown out there, but that them just deciding, you know what, let's go over to that dwarven city and see if we can do this or that, and they just decide to go, and that's what the story is now.
Right.
But it takes a certain kind of player for that. It's not for everybody. A lot of players like, dungeon, constant problem solving, which is fine. I like the occasional trap and problem solving thing in there as well. I just like more intrigue, like, oh, these guys keep coming across the border here and burning down the cities over here. We need to go over there and teach them a lesson, and then, oh my God, they have a wizard. They're actually doing this because of a wizard, or, it just becomes that kind of story.
Yeah. And I like a lot of that, too. I'm a huge fan though of the dungeon crawl. And that's that might be a reason that, like token lighting and visualization and fog of war revelations and stuff like that might be more important to some groups than they are to others, or whatever, because it kind of depends on the the style of the game, right, and what's done most often. And Cooley does make a good point here. Is that I don't know how Roll20 does it, but a lot of them there'll be setting in the VTT where once you've explored the fog of war doesn't go away because it's assumed the characters have mapped and whatnot.
Yeah, I have to admit that I begrudge every second spent on learning anything about the VTT. Once again, every second I'm not spending creating the world and storylines and stuff in the world, I begrudge, and my goal is to spend as little time as possible worrying about it, and so you can see for that reason and more, those reasons and more, it's very unlikely I will switch to anything but Roll20 as long as I can, as long as the onus is on me to um, keep things moving as the GM, and I think I can do that. I think I do that, and um, I don't you know I'm a pretty fair GM. I like the players to have a good time, and I like them to be able to explore intellectually and like think things out. So like I said, I know I'm a little out of step. I think for because of this, because of the way I'm talking right now, people have. I think that's one of the reasons people think I'm like a millennial or something because I like role play and stuff. Uh,
Hey, dude, I love role playing, man. And they'll call me a theater kid. Hey, dude, I ain't no theater kid. Come on, man.
I actually did do
You know,
theater, so
I did when I was much younger,
yeah,
and in my teens, I really reattached to AD&D with some theater kids I met.
yeah.
But man, I love role play.
I
Come on.
did. I did what I do. We did Tea House, the August Moon. Look who's coming to dinner. The lottery. I've been in. I was actually in college. I was in a play called um, Picasso and Einstein. It's either Einstein and Picasso or Picasso and Einstein at the Lapine Gilles, written by Steve Martin. And I had the best part in the play because I was in college at the time with much younger people. I didn't get my degree till I was 40, and so I'm reading the play, and there's this, and it's the whole thing is set in a bar, and like the whole thing, and there's this one old character. He's an old man who's sitting at the bar, and he just gets all the best one liners. He doesn't have the most lines at all, but like you have these two serious intellectuals going back and forth with everybody in the bar and making points, and then this one character is always landing that hilarious one liner that makes the crowd go nuts, but he has way less lines than the two headliner parts of Einstein and Picasso. So all the young people are arguing, vying for trying to get Picasso or Einstein, the Einstein part. And right away, I was like, I want to be this old dude because these lines are going to kill, and I don't have a ton of lines
Right, right.
because they were
Yeah.
they were noobs to theater.
Yeah, yeah, and there's nothing wrong with theater. It does sound like you're certainly a hipster though. If I'm not
I
mistaken.
can wear that label. I can definitely wear that label.
Yeah,
Yep. I mean,
yeah, right
I
on.
played in bands. I've done a lot of I was a hipster before hipster became a cult. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah, yeah, and that's really unfortunate. Kind of like like I used to eat a lot of bacon before all of a sudden everybody liked bacon and chicken wings and stuff, right?
Yeah. The
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, I mean, hopefully people, I mean, you can reach out to me. I'm always on Delver's Discord, and I'm on his channel. I'm on Doom's channel. We're having these chats, and I do the stuff with Great Old Ones on Rollmaster, which we do need to get started on our character creation series there. But I'm easy. I'm an easy guy to track down, and I am on Start Playing. Although I'm not advertising anything yet, because as you can see, this is still a work in progress, and I want to have it really for my style of like sandbox. You really need to have the world developed and ready to go. so that no matter what the players do, you can lay the track down in front of them. But it's coming soon. So I really appreciate you having me on and let me run my mouth about this.
Oh man, that's
What's
my
this?
pleasure. I really appreciate you showing up.
What's he saying here?
It's
Michael Dale, how closely are you tracking time, Gonzalo? Wandering monsters should never be
yeah,
spammed, right? That doesn't mean if the PCs are arguing in the hallway half an hour. Oh no, I mean if the characters are making noise, and uh, you know, and there are creatures nearby that then yeah, absolutely. I if they've it just depends on the situation. I would tend to, if the characters are squabbling in a stupid way that doesn't advance the story and just getting into petty arguments and stuff like that, I'm way more likely to bring wandering monsters into play than if they are really doing some very good thinking about the situation and being rational and um, really figuring things out. I don't like to interrupt that too much. If they're, petty stuff should be punished with wandering monsters. I absolutely agree. But the good thing about just letting them talk for a while is that a lot, not a, I won't say a lot of times, but sometimes this is when I would get up if I'm playing in person. I'll go get some more coffee and I let them talk and I listen to their theories about what's going on, and then sometimes their idea would be way better than whatever I'm doing as the GM, and I would just be like, "Shit, that is now what is happening. What he just said is the actual story now."
right,
And I just drop what I was doing before and change it to that story. Especially if the other players get excited by what the person suggests, as long as it doesn't
right.
conflict with stuff I've already done, it just you've just let the players write the story for you. That's a win in my book.
Yeah, I agree. And Great Old One says that dungeon crawls, his favorite overland is just to get to the next dungeon. And Michael says he's probably a bit more in that camp, but he considers everything that's not just hex crawling a dungeon. Well, yeah, I mean, that's a good point, too. Pretty much anything can be a dungeon. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it just
And Cooley says it's what your character would do,
yeah.
Gonzalo. What do you think about that?
uh,
Is
I mean,
that in fact what your character would do?
well, I we my character might do a lot of things. It depends on which character we're talking about. If it's
Have you
Paul,
considered your alignment?
uh, yeah, I think. Are you talking about me personally? I I
But whichever character we're talking
yeah,
about,
I think.
choose one.
Well, if I mean, Paul's neutral good, which is, um, easy to play. I mean, I don't. I kind of agree with Bill. It's the truest good in that you are not an authoritarian and you're not just out for, to just absolutely punish evil to the point where you don't have any rules about how you go about it. Doesn't mean I don't like chaotic good. I play my ranger is chaotic good and great old ones thing. I have a lot of he's a I play that ranger um as a colonialist. Like
Right.
he like which like Lord of the Rings. That's really what the people from the Dunedain and I'm trying to remember what the name of the island was that sank beneath the sea. It's not coming to me right now, but I mean, they did have to flee their island being destroyed because they stood up to the gods. But they were, so I play my ranger character very much that way. He ran us through X2 Isle of Dread, even though it's AD&D. He used that module because some guys wanted to do it. Uh, um, but
Yes.
yeah, pushes Gonzalo into the corner. I don't. That's a good way to not have Numenor. Yeah, that's other people are mentioning Numenor. Um, you know, I play the ranger that I play in his game is essentially like it's our job to go clear out these wild areas so man can go live there, and if he has to um, uh, engage with the local cultures and go native, and there happen to be island ladies around, that is when he, will sow his seeds, not back on the mainland, in front of his own culture. So, that's just he's spreading his culture in many ways in these areas. So,
Right. And neutral good really is. I mean, if you're just gonna
well, he's
assign.
chaotic good. That character's chaotic good.
Right. But I was going back to neutral
Oh yeah.
good. Your
Yep.
statement, apologies, your statement about neutral good being the ultimate. Generally, whenever you have a neutral in the alignment and it's good or evil, it's either going to be the ultimate good or the ultimate evil, because law or chaos is of no consequence as long as you're pushing good or pushing evil. And I think the natural state of mankind and animal kind and such is probably neutral good for the most part. But chaotic. There's nothing wrong with chaotic good.
we
There's
we did
nothing
forget to
wrong with
mention one thing about BX, and
yes,
that is it has alignment, but
right.
it only has lawful, neutral, and chaotic. There's no good or evil scale of alignment in Mold Bay Basic. So
Yeah, exactly.
it
I think Holmes introduced good and evil, right? So you could be lawful good, you could be lawful evil, chaotic good, chaotic evil, or neutral. I think it's been a little while, and then BX took it back to the simple three alignment system before AD&D took it further.
it's interesting. It's just another way to go about things, and it can be, in a lot of ways, it can be, in a weird way, it can be more nuanced than the 9 alignment grid.
Right. Well, you have more flexibility to operate under that umbrella. I mean, I think that's for sure, right? So if you're lawful, you have a lot more flexibility to operate, but also lawful without the evil good uh paradigm makes lawful
All right.
more something related to the nature of the universe and how it operates,
Can we
maybe.
put Great
Right.
Oldland's most recent comment about this up there?
Yeah, here we go.
This is the dumbest thing I have ever read in my life. No, I was just teasing.
You got highlight. Well, it's what his character would do. Great old one. Coolly warned you.
Law is the side of good. You actually believe that? From what was it, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels? When they're in the car, and he's like, she would never give herself to a man like you. What? What? You actually believe that?
Yes. However, I'm not saying yes that I believe that in and you make a fair point. But however, in what Three Hearts and Three Lions and stuff, and these old Appendix N stuff, where these ideas were extracted from. I mean, that would be relatively accurate, right?
I mean, yeah, that's not how it's going to be in my thing, though. There's law, neutral, and chaos, and you lawful can be every bit as quote unquote evil as chaotic can be. But yeah, there is there are inherent. It's all about whether the individual versus the collective. That's the only scale in my game. So chaos is on the side of the individual, law is on the side of the collective, and you can apply that across a dozen different cultures and direct it. You know what I'm saying? That scales across every situation.
Right. Well, I mean, you've kind of sealed your fate, it looks like.
I mean, well, hopefully not. I mean, we just started a city adventure. I'm having fun. Someone introduce him to the 9-point alignment system, please. Jason, I ain't even trying to hear that. What are you trying? No, I'm just teasing. No, I love the 9-point alignment system. It just I'm doing my own thing in this BX thing, and it'll be interesting. It'll be a little different, I think, if people give it a shot. But once again, it is for people who like the slow story burn and the overland hex crawl adventuring, and not like I gotta have a dungeon. Why are every second not spent in a dungeon is a waste of my life?
Well, to be honest, it kind of is. Um, so lawful evil is the greatest evil. Yeah, I mean, it could be because it's organized evil, right? I tend to think that the neutral evil is the greatest evil because it has no regard for whether or not law or chaos are employed in its ultimate pursuit of evil at any cost. So
Both are valid.
I think those are yeah, I think those are the two ways to look at it. An organized, mechanized evil um, can be maybe more evil and more detrimental to society than generalized evil, and it could also be considered that maybe a more evil that's random and wanton violence and stuff could be more evil. But that's one of the beauties of the 9-point alignment system is that you can actually get into those
I agree with
uh,
Brad. In my opinion,
conversations.
lawful evil, group the group is always more dangerous than the individual person. That's how I think about it in my mind. It's like, everybody can be a have bad ideas or stuff, and when they are, acting in their own interests and not in large groups, they're just a bad person. But whatever you are, once you scale it up, you know becomes more powerful and more of whatever that thing is. So sort of what I like how I see the law and chaos, like the lawful, neutral, and chaotic system is without good and evil metrics, is it's sort of a Taoist, like from a Wizard of Earthsea. Like, it's more of a balance thing. It's not like, oh, there's this evil thing, which there are things you would objectively call evil in the game, but when you get more chaos, opposing forces of law, can come into conflict with chaos, and those two things opposing each other, just because one is chaotic and one is lawful doesn't mean the chaotic one is in the wrong and the lawful thing is in the right. So it's more, I like a little bit more of a gray area in there to act in.
Right. So the question that would occur to me then, would you say that so if lawful evil, for the people who think that lawful evil is the organization of the evil and the community surrounding it makes it the most evil, would you then say that chaotic evil being the less or the least organized of the three alignments, law,
Yes,
neutral,
I would say
and
chaotic
chaos?
evil is the least evil.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Right. Interesting. That hadn't I hadn't thought of it that way, but I'm going to give some more thought to that. Chaotic neutral is the ultimate all over the map, at least with lawful evil. Yeah. Well,
Chaotic neutral is the true individual who has main character syndrome. Nothing else matters but you, and you really don't care what you do to whoever. Um, uh, 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 However, the one thing you do know is you don't want anyone else doing it with you. So,
mm,
once again, I would say lawful neutral would be, you know, when I'm trying to, so like chaotic neutral just means you don't really believe in rules and you don't really care about good or evil. Lawful neutral just means you really believe in rules and you don't really care about good and evil. So again, it
Right.
scales up at the scale of the collective, in my opinion, to be the worst. The bad end of those two things would be the lawful end of that, because it's scaled up
Yeah.
to, whatever it is you are, you've scaled it up to 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 be, more applicable over a wider area of the culture and government and stuff like that.
Yeah, and at the risk of continuing this, I would actually say that lawful neutral is the ultimate alignment. That's probably my favorite to play if I'm a structured type of character, some sort of soldier or something like that, a fighting man, basically, or even a magic user. I like that alignment in particular. Um,
I mean,
it's
lawful
sunk into
neutral.
the great alignment.
Yeah. So
Yes.
Jason here is saying lawful neutral means you think following the rules is in your best interest. I would say you lawful neutral means you think following the rules is in everyone's best interest, whether they like it or not.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point. Whereas chaotic neutral might lean more into thinking about the self
Yeah.
versus or the individualism versus the collective.
You'd still do the
Um,
same stuff. You just wouldn't you wouldn't become a politician and create a corrupt system just to do those things.
right, right.
Uh,
And this is true. So let's just follow up with Michael's thing about defining lawful, and then does a true neutral care about anything one way or the other?
I mean, yeah. I mean, obviously, someone. Now it depends. Once again, we keep bringing AD&D into this, and we got two different systems we're
Sorry.
talking about, which I'm fine. I'm fine with talking about either, but we need to make sure we understand the context that we're talking about. Stuff.
Right.
So if we're talking about the three alignment system, if someone is true neutral, then they're the type of person who they still have their interests and they care about things, but they think sometimes the way to go about that is to handle things yourself or go behind the backs of the government or whoever's in control. And the other times they think that the law or organizational structures matter, so they're willing to make use of either to move the needle on things they care about. What they care about could be anything they want, um, and they don't you could play them a lot of different ways. I mean, you could be a neutral person who is big into selective enforcement of religious or legal or laws. Like I'm truly neutral. Yeah, sometimes you got to charge people because they did it, and other times you don't charge them because I like that guy. So it doesn't really matter. So I can see someone who is like thinks selective enforcement of cultural norms or laws could be a true neutral person.
Yeah, well, and then there's the concept, right, of the guy who understands that there's law in the universe as an overall sort of meta system and chaos in the universe and wants to balance them out, right? But with a three alignment system, obviously, it's a lot less granular than a nine alignment system. So probably each of those alignments, law, neutrality and chaos, they're as I said before, they're bigger umbrellas, but they also might mean different things, like even in their entirety.
So
um
so neutral doesn't care about everyone's best interest. That's good. um yeah, I mean, um well, I mean, once again, depending on which nine or three we're talking about, two different systems, AD&D and AD&D. um it's I t- I I'm in with this thing. I'm trying to go down a path of um more of a, like I said, more of a Taoist interpretation of these things, that where choices, you can look, you can say, oh shit, they're cutting off everyone's heads today, that's not good. I mean, but forces in this world or this universe tend to um you know attract opposite forces. You don't want to murder people, that's not good. But they're you know it, it allows people to make individual choices without being bound to normal concepts of good and evil. And hopefully what I'm trying to achieve in the way I want to try to run this is, um, you know, a good example would be from Earthsea. It's really more of it's really more of a matter of the balance in the world. So, for example, if you're a wizard who casts a weather spell somewhere and you caused rain to help crops in one area, it might mean drought in another area of the world. So, it
Right.
was that good or evil?
Hey, yeah. Well, that's entirely a matter of perspective and which side you're on.
Right. So
Right.
I don't know how. Like I think everybody on a basic level, for the most part, understands general concepts of good and evil to the point where you don't really need those. But not having them does allow you to kind of think of things at a different way and apply sort of a different, like, philosophical underpinning to, like, Taoism or Buddhism or something, to things than just the straight good and evil. I always liked the individual versus the collective way more as a measure of what matters than good versus evil.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a fair point, and I agree with that to an extent. And Cooley actually described what I was trying to say much better than I did, and that's that the Venn diagram across 3 alignments is far more overlapping than with 9
Yes,
alignments, right?
absolutely,
So,
absolutely, yeah.
yeah, yeah, I think that was a really good way to put that. So let's just go back if you've got time and
Sure, yeah,
whatnot, and you're enjoying this.
yeah.
So what is the division then between good and evil in your context, not just lawful versus chaos?
Um,
Is there one?
I mean, there is, but it's in the eye of the people that are involved in it. Like the
Right,
example that I
right.
just gave about I mean, if you go up and murder a child in front of a crowd, that's not good. Everyone can objectively look at that and say that you just went and murdered a kid for no reason. That's objectively evil. I don't think any player or character needs to be told that. Now, if it is evil, there might be some characters like, I'm fine with that. I hated that kid.
Right.
Those would be people who are evil. But
Everybody's evil
right,
sometimes.
but you don't need a label on it to know that that's evil. And then, and then the guy does that, and you stab him in the face because he did that dastardly deed in righteous anger, and then you find out that the kid was actually a demon. I mean,
Right, right.
it just doesn't. I don't I don't I don't really try to pin it down that much. I like these sort of um you know overlapping Venn diagram scenarios to come up, because I think it's a little more role play interesting and gives the players a little more agency than the 9 system does.
Right, right. I can see them being able to operate within the strictures of the alignment a lot more loosely without having to worry about a change. So the idea of neutral fighting for balance bugs me. Neutral fights only for himself.
I don't see, yeah, I don't see neutral people. If you're talking about true neutral in any sense of the word, I don't see true neutral people as fighting for balance. I see them as being the ultimate pragmatists. They just
Right.
whatever the thing that they have to do to stick to their beliefs at that time is the thing to do, whether it's good or evil, whether it's lawful or chaotic. It's just pure pragmatism. At least that's my interpretation of it. That may not match. Gary may not agree with me. I don't know. I'm truly just talking about my personal interpretation.
You have no business playing D&D if you do not agree with Gary
I'm well
Gonzalo.
aware. So I've been
Just so
told
you know.
so many times. So,
As have I. So, all right. Mr. Spock
yeah.
was his alignment.
Um, I would say Spock it would be. I'm trying to think here, because he has a code which is all about um,
Right.
sublimating emotions and the self. Um, so I don't think he's chaotic. Um, I would say he's probably I would say if you're talking about the 9 alignment system, I would say he's probably neutral good.
Okay.
Dave
What about
Mills,
the 3 alignment
yeah.
system?
Under the 3 alignment system, I would say he's lawful
Yeah,
because he has
I
a
agree
very
with that.
yeah, he has a very rigid philosophical system and believes in the the scalable application of that philosophy.
Yeah, and I think that comes culturally, right? Because the Vulcans are obviously lawful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but he
at
will
least from my
lie or at
perspective.
least exaggerate when he has to. So
Right.
he's not totally incapable of breaking his own code.
Right.
Interesting
Um,
questions.
yeah, a lot of interesting questions. It's been a blast. Spock's alignment is logical. Well, yeah, so he has his own alignment. He just breaks out entirely.
He does. Did anybody else? You ever watch In Search of?
Yeah, what in search of Spock?
No, the show In Search of. It was Leonard Nimoy.
Oh
Was
yes.
the narrator of the show. That was a great.
Yeah. I remember that. It was that was a good bit ago, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Uh, man, like VHS time, right?
yeah.
Um, yeah, I remember that.
Now I would say Khan is chaotic neutral.
Yeah, you know, I would have to agree with that. I don't think there's a lot of
He's
evil
he doesn't give a shit about the law.
pursuit of evil, right? And he definitely doesn't give a shit about the law.
Yeah. Um,
Um,
and he will murder but it's not like it's I mean he sought revenge against Kirk, but is revenge just murder? I mean Kirk did do some stuff that you know did him dirty,
yeah, and he was marooned. There was there's obviously some sociopathy that's going to come along with that, and like you said, he was done dirty. So that's entirely subjective. So that goes back to your point about, hey, this guy's doing evil, but is he really doing evil,
Right.
or is he just doing justice to right an injustice that was done against him? And I think that's what's that's a fascinating aspect of that particular
He
character.
didn't keep in mind Khan didn't take the Genesis device and go blow up a planet with it. He
Right.
tried to kill Kirk and everyone on his ship with it. The very people who led to the murder of his wife and the the marooning him on that planet. So I would say, if he had immediately gone and said, "I'm just gonna," and maybe his plans were, maybe I'm forgetting something from the movie, but if I am, I'm forgetting it. So he didn't. If he had gone, "Oh, I'm gonna go to Earth and do the Genesis device on Earth and kill everybody on Earth," yeah, then that's definitely evil. But revenge slash justice for the man who marooned him on that planet. And they're all military people. They he's allowed to. I was just following orders is not a defense. So
Right. And I find that this is true. Cthulhu has the 10th alignment. No one knows what he's thinking, what Azathoth is thinking, Nyarlathotep, none of them, because they're not thinking.
He's saying Khan was marooned because of his actions against humanity. I'm trying to remember, so he tried to take control of humanity, if I remember correctly. He tried to take control of Earth, or was it a colony? And so I don't remember if he committed war crimes or what he did, which once again, still I think is still covered to some extent under chaotic neutral. But if he did commit war crimes, I don't remember what they were off the top of my head. So yeah, I mean, some more information about, or given it a once over and re-looking at that might war crimes, yeah. He was an opportunity. He seemed like just a political. My memory is he took over 40 nations. Yeah, okay. So I mean, we got shit like that going on right now all over the world. So I wouldn't say that according to humanity's how we judge things now, that doesn't seem to be a problem. So
yeah, it doesn't. It actually seems like
yeah,
the best alignment to play in real life, right?
yeah, right, exactly. But I do actually have to kind of get going because I actually have to get up for work in the morning.
Right on.
I don't want to, but I've had a great time.
Oh, I'm sure.
I'm sorry about our tech difficulties at the start, but now we know.
Yeah. Now we know, and now I know to be extra early. Should we do this again, or just do it in StreamYard, which is fine. StreamYard works fine, and all that. And I really appreciate you being here, especially for this long time, and considering the technical difficulties and the fact that you have to get to work in the morning. I wish you the best of luck with that, and that you have a great day. And I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you coming and sharing your thoughts with me and the rest of us. And anytime you ever want to come back and talk, and Gonzalo's got this game going on Start Playing, you're going to send how do we update people on that? You're going to when you're ready to go.
Yeah, when I'm ready to go, I'll start advertising it on Start Playing and start spamming Delver, every single channel at Delver's thing over and over.
There you go.
It. So tech issues.
That's true, Michael.
That's right.
And thank you, Cooley. Yeah, I mean, that's all I really got to say. I mean, I appreciate everyone's input. I loved all the questions. Yeah, I agree, Brad. It was a great chat. Thank you very much, and then thank you in particular, Gonzalo, for hanging out.
No problem. You got a good crowd here.
I evidently I don't know where they came from, but hey, guys, stick around.
Yep.
Yeah, it's good to talk to you because it's been a little while.
Yep. So I'm happy to do it. Let me know next time. Anytime you need me on, just let me know.
Yes, sir. And right. For everyone else, have a great night. Thank you. I'm just going to abruptly end it because I'm in StreamYard and I don't have no outro or anything like that. So catch you guys later. Hit me up or anyone else up anytime, and have a great night. Thank you.